يا حماس يا حماس يا خمس يا خمس يلا go يا حماس.
Send our license fee money to the family of a terrorist. Shame on the BBC.
Hi everyone, Sammy Woodhouse at Rebel News here. Well, Gideon Falter, the Chief Executive of Campaign Against Antisemitism, has held a protest outside the BBC in London, which saw around 100 people attend. Now, they're calling for the licence fee to be suspended pending an independent investigation. Before the event, Gideon posted, "The BBC has admitted handing your licence fee to the family of a Hamas terrorist. That money came from the 400,000 of the money that BBC executives paid for a long-form propaganda film. As part of its biased brainwashing output, a national treasure has become a national embarrassment." Well, I headed down to the BBC offices to find out exactly what the people had to say. Tell me what brings you to the protest today.
Well, I've come to support the Jewish community, but basically it's everything about the BBC. It's their bias on all their reporting. It's not just a Jewish issue. I mean, I go on demos and the reporting I see afterwards, you see a left-wing demo, they're activists, and suddenly a right-wing demo, they're violent thugs. And it's that continual wordplay that they use that is trying to get the public against me, like they're doing with the Jewish community here.
Today I've come to demonstrate against the BBC for the way they're reporting the Israel-Palestine conflict.
How do you feel they've reported it?
Very badly.
That not everything that you see on the BBC is factually correct. And we felt that we had to come out and just let the BBC hear our voice.
I'm appalled at the BBC screening the documentary for pro-Hamas, having the son of the the farming minister? The agricultural minister, and we're going to stop paying our BBC licence fee in protest.
As a third-generation Jew, family came here in the early 1900s. I've lived all my life, and I can honestly say I've not really experienced any anti-Semitism growing up. I grew up in an area where there were no Jewish people, but since October the 7th, it's just blown all our minds. To see the establishment, it's not even the far right. There is no far right, in my opinion. And to actually see, and they highlighted it here, the Gary Linekers of the world, etc., it's just unbelievable.
You've got a prime minister that's more interested in going to mosques and hearing the preaching going on. We have a king that has Westminster Abbey, where they're doing all their praying in Westminster Abbey. I just think we're at a crossroads in this country. I really do. I think, sadly.
Well, I think that Britain has a reputation for being a country that is very fair and very fair in its thinking, and we seem to have been hijacked by a group of people who have their own agenda, and it's not a very pleasant one. And I think the thing that I have found worrying and disappointing since October the 7th is firstly the way that people have sprung into action to batter Israel and to demonise Israel before even they retaliated, and we had demonstrations on the streets of London here before any action had been taken whatsoever. And on a Saturday in London, it's become almost a complete no-go area because of the protests that have been going on.
I think with what's been brought up in the last couple of weeks with an amazing chap, David Collier, who's an independent chap who's fought to bring this information out about the money that's been imposed by us to spend to help the BBC fund Hamas, and where it's our money, and I feel the need that to pay the licence fee is going to terrorist organisations. So for me, it's a must to tell people this needs to stop.
I'm old enough to remember when the IRA were bombing London, and some of the reporting the BBC done they was calling them rebels. In fact, they're not rebels, they're terrorists.
Feel safe as a Jewish woman walking the streets? I know we've had many protests and things.
I used to. These days, I have to admit to a little bit of fear, only because I'm surrounded by the constant notes of dislike for Jews. I don't want to say anything stronger than that, but it feels a little bit frightening that the country I was brought up in and where I've brought up my kids safely and happily is now feeling a little bit, well, scary.
Why do you think the BBC's done it?
Because they're racist and
Is it that's what it is?
anti-Semitic. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If a real news channel will just report the facts on the ground
Like Rebel News.
in any conflict with any subject, like Rebel News and many other GB News, etc. Just report the facts. Why they got a different agenda when it comes to Israel than when it comes to the UK? It just shouldn't be like that.
And I refuse to listen to any media outlets. That includes Sky TV, Channel 4. All of them are resigned for not spelling out the truth.
But I think now is the time for the silent majority to start shouting up about what they see is fair and what isn't fair. And hopefully they will conclude that what's going on at the moment, particularly with reference to our national broadcaster, is not how it should be. And that will spark a wave of people actually trying to consider the issues at hand rather than just take for granted the headlines.
Do you think this is an attack on the Jewish people?
I think the BBC has always had an anti-Semitic, an anti-Semitic feeling towards anything. Yes, I think. Is it a direct attack? Well, shamefully, there are probably Jewish people working for the BBC, but I find that within that, you've got people like Gary Lineker, who's a big personality within the BBC, speaking out for hatred of Jews, as I consider it. He's speaking out for he wants terrorism to be broadcast.
And an awful lot of what's being driven at the moment seems to be coming from the left, but that isn't to say that there aren't people across the board who have the same kind of thoughts. I think it's disappointing that we have a government that isn't prepared to stand up and take action, unlike some of the other governments that seem to be coming to a conclusion that actually what's going on at the moment is not an acceptable situation, and the way that, for instance, the hostages who are being held in Gaza, aren't being supported. It seems to be that there is slowly but surely a turning in the tide in other countries, and I think it's pretty unimpressive that our government refuses to condemn what's going on in any kind of terms and is incredibly mealy-mouthed. And as somebody who thinks they're reasonably politically aware, that's incredibly disappointing. I think that the current government is frankly spineless.
If you could send one message to the BBC, what would it be?
What would be the message to the BBC? You have put my life and the lives of every Jew at risk by your horrendous, disgusting reporting.
If there's one message you can send to the spineless government, what would it be?
I think it's about time you looked at yourselves in the mirror and thought, am I doing what is right and proper, or am I doing what I think is the line of least resistance? And I think that goes not just for the government, but sadly, the institution that used to be the great Metropolitan Police, because we've been sadly let down by them as well. And the kind of two-tier standards of policing that we have are incredibly disappointing. That's why, when my friend here says she doesn't feel safe anymore, why should that be? Everybody in the UK has a right to feel safe, and if our police aren't implementing that, then shame on them.
Well, we at Rebel News have started a campaign that you can all get involved in. So head over to stopthelicensefee.co.uk and sign the petition. I'm Sammy Woodhouse reporting with Rebel News.